Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah. All right. I think it's starting. Hi, everyone. We are here in the Innovative Expert Substack Live. I'm so excited. I'm going to do a quick little introduction and then I'm going to jump in and we are going to talk with a guest who I keep having guests on that are inspiring me to take action. I think maybe I'm just doing this for myself to just be like, what else do I need to actually get myself to do? Right. um, So thrilled to be here. I'm Dr. Stephanie Thrower. I'm a psychologist. I have a private practice that focuses on the intersection of maternal mental health and career. And in the last several years, I have wanted to diversify my income and my tasks. And I also am such a nerd about career and I guess business that I started coaching people in creating courses and have been able to just nerd out in my research and academic brain. And the thing that makes that possible for me with 3 kids is AI. And so I help people utilize AI in the process of extracting their expertise and brilliance and getting it out there to their people. Right. So happy to be here today. We are going to talk to Wendy Shore. And I'm so thrilled. We're very lucky because I wrote a little bit about it this week. But man, LinkedIn, we know in therapy, you're supposed to know what your defenses are, right? Like you're supposed to know your growth edges. And from a marketing standpoint, LinkedIn is kind of, I keep being like, ugh. So today we're going to dive in. I'm going to tell people a little bit about Wendy Shore. She is a LinkedIn top voice, TEDx and keynote speaker, and best-selling author who helps professionals get found, trusted, and chosen in the age of AI. With 30 plus years of business experience, including building and operating 7 award-winning restaurants and a background as a CPA, Wendy brings a rare combination of operational credibility and marketing expertise to every stage. She is the creator of the Recognizable Authority Framework and the author of a book we're going to talk about today, Comment Currency, a guide to building authority through strategic LinkedIn engagement. Her work sits at the intersection of LinkedIn strategy, brand authority, and AI visibility, helping founders, executives, and business owners become the name people and AI recommend. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
I am so happy to be here with you today.
Thank you for sitting through my long spiel, but yeah, we're gonna dive right in. When we first started talking right away, it's so apparent you have done so many different things in your work life.
I have.
Many lives, right?
I think a lot of people have though, right? You have to like look backwards to connect the dots and see how it all fits with what you're doing. But I think anything and everything we do, we learn and we take from, right? And then it just helps us on our path. And here we are.
I know. I think what I find when I'm working with people, whether it's they have W-2s or businesses, their depth of their career story is usually, it's not like supported enough. They don't really do that work to connect the dots because either people haven't taught them how to do it or asked them questions about their interesting work experiences and how school played into it. So it seems like you're really attuned to that. It would make sense.
And you know what's actually funny? Because as you're talking, I'm like laughing because, you and I do a lot of work with AI and I started using ChatGPT when it came out in 2022, November 2022. And before that, I actually used Jarvis, which then became Jasper. But I was trying to like write my bio and, everything is, you sort of meander and you don't like start on this path and you know exactly where you're going. So I start out just doing like business growth and helping people write business plans, consulting. And then, I got very involved with LinkedIn and people started asking me more about how I use LinkedIn. So you kind of like take everything you learn and you move. But I was putting the information into ChatGPT to help me write a bio for a presentation that I was going to be giving on stage. And it started asking me questions, and I put in I was a certified public accountant, and it literally was like, wait, stop everything, Wendy. You're telling me that you have a background in accounting? This has to be forefront and center. And it's funny, the way it talks to you. But I think that's when I really started thinking about it more, that like, yes, because it helped me in my restaurant career, right? Owning restaurants, you have to know how to read your financials, everything I learned in the restaurant, customer service, grace under pressure, being able to multitask, right? Being able to read a room, prioritize, all those things carry me now, right? And so everything you learn, so I would tell anybody, just like take a look at what you've done, even if you don't think it's important, it is. And it shapes who you are and how you show up and how you can be a success today.
Yeah, yeah. And it's so sad that it's like ChatGPT that is the thing that's like, hold up, this is impressive. I don't breathe, but I think this is right.
Right. It's funny, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think so much of just understanding how to verbalize our skills, what our strengths are, let alone even think about what we care about in work.
Right.
I mean, and I think that, yeah, it's just really important, and that you have done the work to not diminish like what the restaurant piece did, right? And what, because I think that there's a hierarchy of what seems important for work. And I find when you jump into the business world, it's like, oh, what's a whole different hierarchy of success, and like who is at the top, right? Even when it's not helpful or relevant or even true sometimes, right?
And then it's interesting when in my restaurant life, I had hundreds of people that worked for me. I had a team, incredible people that stayed with me for over 20 years. And then now I'm basically a solopreneur, and my team are AI agents, right? They're not even like, I have some people that I like might sub some stuff out to, but it's interesting because, it's like, hey, we got to get this done. Well, yeah, that's me. I got to do it. Right? And so it's a whole different dynamic, but I like it and I enjoy it. And then it puts me out there more, and I get to meet people like you along the way, and so that's the beauty of it, because you find yourself meeting people in communities that, as a, business owner with a large group of people that work for you as a team, you're not in those communities. So I'm loving what I'm doing now. I really am.
That's awesome. Yeah. Yes. And so we'll talk about some of the things that you're doing. I'm sure there's, when I interview people in the circles that we're in and the mastermind that we're in, people are offering so many different cool things. And I think that AI has allowed us to do that really in some ways, right? And being the kind of, like you said, I'm on my own most of the time, and I need to execute those things with the support of AI.
Right.
But like you said.
And then, here's the thing, when you're part of communities like we are, AI is such a helpful tool. I mean, it truly is. But AI learns from all of the great stuff that people put into it and all of the crappy stuff that people put into it. And so when you don't know, right, like obviously, there are things you don't know, but if it's telling you, and we know it hallucinates also. So being around other people that are in the same like position that you are, where they're learning and growing, but they've done other things, and that you can help and learn from each other, that's how you really go forward faster. So it's using the AI as a tool, not as a replacement, but then keeping the human in it, wherever, that is.
Yeah, like leveraging, well, I'm using AI for this thing, but I better check with a human that actually knows what good copy is or what decent business models are. I think that there's a way where we can kind of get lured into like thinking we can do so much. Also because that ChatGPT or Claude is being like, you are the only person offering this, right?
What a great idea you have. This is setting you apart, right? And you're like, okay, am I really though?
You're like, I'm really onto something, right?
Right? It's true. It makes you feel so good.
Yeah, I know.
But think about that for a moment, right? Like I never really thought about it till this very moment. But I mean, we know it's programmed to please you, right? It's programmed, but that little bit of encouragement like kind of makes you go, right? It makes you go a little bit more. You're like, oh, I want to do more. I can do it, right? So I think when it's used for good, when the powers of AI are used for good, it could be a really good thing. So
Yeah, I think it's a reflection. I mean, obviously, I'm going to say this as a therapist, but it can be a reflection of like how intense our self criticism can be,
mhm,
how intense like the larger culture is in supporting that kind of like criticism or diminishing an idea. Because when we're really new at something, we do need encouragement.
right, right, very true,
It's
right?
very
Because
important.
and you don't know what you don't know either, right? So you don't even know if you're on the right track. So that's where AI, I think, has been most helpful,
Yeah.
is putting you on the track.
Yeah. So let's when I started to write for or prep for our session, I was thinking about LinkedIn has been such an interesting place where for me, I connected with it or identified with it when I was in grad school, which was a very long time. And I was in a kind of going in the track of academics, professor, had my first baby and was like, I'm out. I built a business out of like surprisingly, and or surprisingly to me. And I have found it so interesting being outside of an institution, being out in a private practice, understanding where my place is. And as I've built a coaching practice, even though I work in career, I still feel like I don't fit in after this change, right? And I wonder, have you heard, is that story come up for people that you work with? Like, what are your thoughts on that?
Oh,
Probably so many.
I think that people still think that LinkedIn is a place where your resume goes to die, and it's a job search platform. And it was, and it is, but it's not. It's so much more than that. It is really the world's largest business networking platform. It's a relationship and building platform. And the associations I made, the people I've met, you know, friends and business associates, and the opportunities that have come from LinkedIn are actually incredible, right? And I don't find that on Facebook, even though I know there are incredible people on Facebook and people who build businesses on Facebook. I don't find that on Instagram. It's not where people start engaging in the comments, and the next thing you know, you're having a Zoom, virtual coffee, and the next thing you know, you're doing business and you're speaking on their stage, or you invite them to your event. Like, it's incredible what can happen if you just take a moment and spend a little bit of time on LinkedIn.
What do you think is like enough time?
Not as much as you think.
Yeah.
It does not have to be a second job. It really doesn't. Especially now, with the algorithm, the LinkedIn algorithm, they say it's like 150 billion parameter AI LLM. And what's happening now is it's reading context. So when you're putting content out there, it's actually reading it and saying, okay, Stephanie's headline says this, and her content says this, and there's a connection there and it matches. And so she's an expert in what she's saying. And so it starts to give credibility, more like credibility. If your headline says one thing, right? Like if your headline says you're a psychologist, but you're writing about what you're doing with AI, there's a disconnect there, right? And so you want your headline and your content to match, right? And yep. And so, and the other thing is this, so many of us are multi-potentialites. Like, we do a lot of things. Even before this whole change in AI became the algorithm, I always said you got to pick one thing. It's almost like that book, The One Thing, but what do you want to be known for, right? And then if there's a couple of things you do, you can kind of figure out the thread that connects them, and then that's the thing, right? But you don't want to say, like, I'm a dog trainer and I build AI agents for people, because there's a big disconnect and people aren't going to listen to either one. Even if you are the ultimate expert as a dog trainer and the ultimate expert in building AI agents, people would be confused, and now the AI is confused, and so you become invisible. So now, going back to the question, if you post 2 really good pieces of content a week, 3 if you have time, and then you take the time to engage with people and you don't need more than 20 minutes a day to do that either, you'll start to see traction on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like even when I see something that is so clearly selling how great LinkedIn is compared to other posts or ads, I pretty much believe it. I think that though, the people, it's not a place where people are posting as much relative to how many people are on it, right? It's still a place where people respect people who are courageous enough to post. Yeah. What do you think LinkedIn does for someone building a coaching practice?
Before I go there, I just want to go to what you just said. You said for people who are courageous enough to post. And what I find funny about that, and the reason it made me laugh, is like, I know CEOs and founders that do like $1 million deals before breakfast. I mean, they're just powerhouses. And they're like, what am I going to post on LinkedIn? What am I going to say? What are my peers going to think? And so there's just something about it that holds people back. You know, I got very lucky when I got on LinkedIn was they had this thing called collaborative articles. It had just come out, and what they were AI generated articles. And then LinkedIn encouraged you to add to them to fill in the blanks on what was like maybe missing from the article. So use your experience and your expertise to fill in the blank. And I started doing that right when the collaborative articles came out. And I liked it because it gave me like, it was almost like a prompt, right? There's my prompt and I'm like filling in. Then they started giving out badges for doing that, like these little gold badges. So at one point I actually had 13 gold badges, right? In all the, which is probably how I got noticed and maybe what led to the blue badge. But so I love doing that. And that's what got me comfortable writing, right? That's what got me comfortable. So I was very lucky in that aspect. And then just like anything else, people tried to game the system and they were using AI to write answers and they weren't really doing what LinkedIn wanted, which was to add to the conversation. So they kind of shut that down. So anyway, building a business, building a coaching business, any business really, LinkedIn, there's so much opportunity if you are willing to go out there and post. And we talk about the commenting because that's really the feature that's so it's like a little superpower, right? When you leave a post and then somebody comments on it, right? Their comment can start a conversation, right? They may say, you know, why your post resonated, add to it. This is in their experience. This is what they found. And then they might ask you a question and you'll answer the question. So now there's a little bit of a conversation going on. The algorithm says, oh, there's activity going on here. You know, this must be an important post. The other thing with that is that when you comment on somebody else's, you're not just showing to your network, you're showing to the poster's network. So you now have, depending on how many followers they have and how many people are reading their post, you exponentially increase your chances of being seen by other people and having conversations with other people. So one of the benefits is that you're going to get seen by people you may not get seen by otherwise. The other benefit is that conversations really start there, because if you say something that's really profound or interesting or really adds to the conversation, then somebody else might go, oh, who is that Stephanie person? That's really good, right? So now they're going to go over and they're going to look at your profile, right? And they like your headline. And so, okay, this is a person I want to know more. That's where the post comes in. That's where it's important to be posting as well, because that's where your authority is going to be built. So then they're going to read your content and they're going to go, yeah, this person's cool. I want to connect with them, or I just want to follow them. And that's how like growth happens, where it's just sort of organic, but it's based on actually just connecting with people to start.
Yeah. And I think it's so interesting, I think how AI is going to weave into our conversation. But I think when we think about visibility strategies, so much of them can feel like check the box, right? I think it's generally strategies are kind of check the box, right? It's like, okay, I'm going to follow this plan and this is how we're going to do it. But I think in LinkedIn, especially, and we can dive in even more, there's an art to commenting that comes from a place of actual curiosity, not intellectually. Like in my space, I think a lot of what comes up is intellectual performance. I grew up in fancy classrooms where we all had to write discussion questions for our readings, right? Like
Right.
that was all we did in grad school. And it was about flexing something publicly rather than generating actual conversation. And it's so funny. I think about it now. My mentor, Dr. Janet Helms, did one of the best classes ever that I've ever taken, because all we did in that class was bring in our discussion questions and actually talk about it. It wasn't like an exercise. It wasn't just a check off the box. We used that 2.5 hours to talk about which was very weird and awkward and felt very strange, but it was the most meaningful course I'd literally ever taken.
Okay. Because it was real discussion, real conversation. Right?
Yeah. And I think probably when the effort to write them was different too, because it felt like it was going to be used, it was going to be read. It wasn't just for show to be like, I finished this or I'm really smart, right?
I found when I first started, especially, and I wanted to teach something, right, that I had some, subject knowledge of, but I needed to dive a little bit deeper because I was going to teach somebody. The act of writing, doing that taught me more. And then I became I had deeper knowledge and deeper expertise on that subject. So I can see how that could really happen, because the more you dive in and you write and you learn, and when you have to teach it to somebody else or present it to somebody else, you take the time to really know it, as opposed to surface level, right? Like all the self-help books, or, which we call shelf improvement because nobody actually read them. So no, I could see how that could definitely happen. Yeah. So when you leave a comment, right, the point isn't to like hijack the conversation, for sure. Can you be a little bit showy and performative? Maybe. But there is strategy. Like, why are you commenting on that post to begin with? Is it a peer, and are you trying to connect with the peer? And if so, then maybe, there's a language that, psychologists speak that you may want to use in that, because that's who you're looking to connect with. Okay. If you're looking for, career women who may need help, and so you're looking to connect with your ICP, if you use, jargon that they're not going to understand, they're just going to glaze over, right? Where if you write something that would help them, an actionable takeaway that would help them, that's when they're going to notice you, and so that's when they're going to come over and see. So I think before you even comment, what is the strategy behind it? What are you trying to accomplish? And then you can figure out what steps you're going to take next, and or how you're going to say it and what you're going to do. So there's a strategy behind it. You have to know why you're actually commenting as well.
Yeah. And I think that social media, it's interesting because every platform is different, right? And commenting matters across them all in different ways. I think that the way that I was taught in Facebook was pretty like poaching people from groups to get into your own group. Like that was my initial foray into that experience. And so I kind of learned, and I was like, oh, I'm paying for this coaching program. I'm going to go try to do this, right? But I think what you're saying too is shifting for me, just adding depth to what this means. And I think that really clicked, saying something that is actionable, right? Even I could write for days on LinkedIn or in my blogs or whatever about all of my ponderings, but ultimately something clicked recently where I was like, no, I want to have actionable guides so I do a reflection article after this. And it usually has reflection questions and a series of prompts that people can use on. So we'll take this information and we'll kind of develop it from that. But yeah, I want people to like do things, right? In general.
And actually doing that the way you're doing it, and you may not even realize it, but you're sending out incredible signals out into the AI universe, right? Because one, you're reflecting, which means you're talking from experience. Very important when you're writing any sort of content. Anybody could do a listicle, and if AI could write it, then it's almost a waste because it's just going to become invisible in the, in the content universe because there's so much noise out there. So you want to include your own experience, right? Or reflections and the actionable steps and the list with it. So the information, right, with your take on it or your experience or in my opinion or in 20 years, here's what I've learned or whatever it is that makes it yours, that not anybody could have written it, but only you could have written it, then you're actually writing the content that's going to be, surfaced by AI, but also and understood by people.
Yeah. And I think the power of like then making sure your prompt has you in it too, right? Because like we can have AI write prompts for days and days, but I actually think when you ask AI to analyze something the way you would, like that shifted everything. So the way I really started using AI in my work, so I do career assessments, and I've loved doing vocational assessments because I learned it at the VA. So it was very focused on rehabilitation and going back into work post-military. And that's when I was like, oh yeah, I'm a vocational psychologist. But that process is one of my favorites. I used to do like paper pencil. And now I send questions, but then I have a prompt that analyzes and synthesizes all the data the way I would, the way that the like integrating theory.
Right.
And people like the sessions we have after they complete, fast forward probably 7 hours of conversation we have, right? Because I just have so much data. And B, it's just amazing to have all of this in one document. It's like a white paper for their career that they can have conversations with for the remain. It's just very, right?
Yep. Yeah. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that's where people get lost when they use AI because they don't put enough of themselves in it. And so they're getting this generic stuff. Like we said, they're getting the good, but they're getting the bad. And, I've seen people use AI as like their main consultant, let's just say, right? Their AI consultant. And they've gotten such garbage.
I know.
And why are we whispering?
I know. But it's so true. I know. We're just trying to wake people up. Yeah.
No, I know. We're like, they're using the wrong one. No. But no, it's true. But no, louder for the people in the back of the room. Like,
exactly.
If you don't have the experience and you don't know, it sounds really good, but it may not be, right? Yeah. And that's where and you know what I will do sometimes though? Okay, this is a hint for everybody. So I will run something, let's say through ChatGPT, and then I take it and I run it through Claude, and then I take it and I run it through Perplexity, and then I see and then I get them like against each other. But also I've had so many years of experience that I have a really good understanding of what things should be. And if I don't know, I say, okay, I don't really know, and even if it sounds good, I may try and talk to somebody like we were saying earlier, who has been in this space, and get feedback or get, and that's part of being part of really good groups of people who are building similar things to you, even if it's not in the same exact space, but building together and doing things together and having each other to feedback off is priceless, really.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think having I think having humans to talk through the thing that you're working on with AI is also really like probably just a good body practice too, because your brain can just like be spinning and creating and doing something. And again, you might be in that place of being like, I don't know. I'm a genius and I just invented something, right?
Right. Oh, you're so smart.
Exactly. Yeah.
No, it's true. And then, okay, so now let's tie that back into LinkedIn. So what you don't want to do is take AI slop and throw that on a LinkedIn post. Like, just don't even bother. First of all, everybody knows what it is now, especially, right? And so you're just going to lose respect. You
Totally.
know, you're better off taking those, doing it. I would rather see you do it once or twice a week well than 5 days a week just trying to put it out there. It doesn't matter, again, with the AI reading it. And the other thing that's beautiful right now with LinkedIn is posts last longer, right? You don't even have to wake them up. You know how on Facebook we talk about waking up the post, going back? Posts just seem to last longer, especially things that are relevant. They're being shown weeks later to people, right? And what LinkedIn does, which I love, is so, let's say you commented on a post. Somehow one of my posts from 2 weeks ago showed up on your feed and you comment on it. Now, what it does is it shows it to people in your network and I'll say, Stephanie commented on this post. So now other people who may not have seen my post are now going to see it if it's relevant to them, right? So it's they're really trying to figure out what's relevant and who they're going to show it to, right? So I love how they're doing that.
Yeah. I mean, I think I'm thinking about like the CEOs with the $2 million deals, right? That are nervous to post. And I think, yeah, I was thinking about kind of how Facebook compares, right? Is this space where there's certainly social comparison and sometimes business-ish comparison, but LinkedIn it's like it's like college reunion, right? It's like high school. Like there's something so vocational about that comparison and where it can feel really overwhelming to be visible for many of us that don't have backgrounds where it was all about visibility, right? Yeah. And I think the other thing that you're talking about too, like in our whisper, right, or our shouting, is getting people's attention matters, right? And I think sometimes people will rely on ridiculous headlines or like hooks that are just so, but I think that there's ways to use visuals to do things on LinkedIn that are not seen enough, right? Like, because it can kind of be a visually boring space. I don't know. What do you think
Not
about
so
that?
much anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
people are putting, one of the things, and I said this before AI really became a thing, is people are so concerned with the vanity metrics, right? How many likes did I get? How visible am I? And visibility, just for the sake of visibility, is almost a waste, right? Great. So people saw you, but do they remember you, right? Do they know who you are? Do they know what you do? And you're so much better off being seen to 100 people who really, really, really resonate with you, who may want to do business with you, as opposed to 10,000 people who really don't care who you are, right? And will never do business with you. So that's what you have to realize. It's like being visible is being seen, but being recommended leads to money and leads to sales, right? And so do you want to be known for something and be that person and be seen by the right people? And some people do want to be seen by everybody. Some people just want to be superstars. But if the point is business growth, then you have to concentrate on making sure the right people see you as opposed to just everybody. The other thing is, and the difference, you're talking the difference between Facebook and LinkedIn is, everybody makes fun of the marketing bros on LinkedIn. It doesn't go over like it did on Facebook. And to this day, I still see it on Facebook a lot. And, it's just when it's seen on LinkedIn, people will literally call it out on their posts, which I think is kind of funny. And I know we kind of make fun of it a little bit. And listen, it worked for them for a while, but just, the promises of overnight success, most people are getting smarter. They're realizing they've gotten burned, right? Once in a while, those things still hit somebody. But for the most part, people are realizing, hey, you know what? Business is hard. It takes time. And I'm going to put in the right effort in the right way. And I'm going to grow. And it's like anything else. When you grow with intention, it stays, it sticks, right? When you lose weight because you stop eating completely and then you start eating, you're going to gain it back, you know? If you eat well, healthier, your movement, exercise, then it sticks, right? You keep it off longer. So it's kind of the same thing. You could just balloon and grow, but is it sticking?
Yeah. I mean, I think that learning how to market yourself, learning how to sell, these skills, we want someone to give us a playbook we want someone to give us an outfit and be done, right? Like
Yes, exactly.
and the hard part is a lot of this is internal muscles that don't make any sense, that feel really confusing, that go against some of our training, right? Like and I think that we just want to kind of borrow from the strength of other people. And I think, or AI. And sometimes we just have to do that to keep moving forward so that inner critic's not so freaking loud, right? But if you put your mind to it, right? If you write those discussion questions, if you think actually about what would be a super useful carousel or whatever, like
Right.
that time and energy, sometimes I think that it's like that's a different kind of courage of trying to put in that time and energy when it feels hard, right?
That's why commenting is a great place to get started, right? Because it's supposed to be a conversation. It's not supposed to be a well thought out curated post. You know, it's just supposed to be, you may want to put thought into it, but it shouldn't take you more than like a minute to respond, and usually less. But you look at it, you respond, you hit send, then you go on to the next one. And there are ways to make curated lists of the people that you are interacting with. And I do go into that a little bit with common currency, but you want to interact with your ideal client. You want to interact with your peers and peer adjacent, meaning people who have the same ICP as you, but not necessarily doing the same thing as you, right? It's just that's where your ideal client hangs out. You want to do smaller influencers, people who are building alongside you, right? And you support each other. And then a couple of larger influencers. And with that, realize that if they're getting, thousands of comments, that unless you're like commenting first, it's going to get pushed down, right? Doesn't mean you shouldn't. It just means that that's not really the priority. Yes, you will get seen by some people. So should you? Yes. But should you make it your number one? No, you definitely want to be where your ideal client might see you, right? Whether it's directly to them or where they hang out.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about a lot of people that, a lot of therapists or coaches who are wanting to get into corporate workshops and having kind of their wellness, I don't even speaking. And it's almost like I have no idea where to start, right? And I think usually LinkedIn is a great place to start it, but it almost feels like such a barrier, right, to jumping in. And I wonder what would help people, if it would help people to have, when they're feeling kind of in that like fog, what do they need to be looking for to comment on? Like, I know the algorithm will push us stuff, but I don't know. What do you think?
Well, okay. So if you're looking for people who are career coaches, as an example, so you go into your search bar and you do career coaches, and then you can do posts or you could do people. But if you're looking for posts to comment on, you do posts. And then LinkedIn will show you posts that are coming up with the words, like career coaches in it, whether it's a career coach posting it or whether it's about career coaches. And then that's where you can start to look at some of the posts that you may want to interact with, and then you can sort it. You could do the last 24 hours. You could do the last week. You want to go by the latest, though. You don't want to go the most relevant. You want to go by the latest because that means those people are on LinkedIn now, right? And then just start commenting and just start working on your commenting muscle. And it gets easier, like anything else, It's like doing video, which I need to start doing. And I always threaten that I'm going to, and then I don't. But the more you do something, the more you develop that muscle, the easier it becomes, and the more you feel comfortable doing it. And again, just add value to the conversation. If they're talking about If a career coach is giving advice on uh, their top 10 tips for job search, and they left out one that you recommend, you might say, this is an incredible list. I've also found that if you do this one other thing, it can help your chances exponentially. Great comment, right? That's it. That's all you have to do.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, I
you
know.
have to
And
get
I think
somebody in
you
action. Yeah.
absolutely. And I think what you're like by bringing that example in for people too, I think that we hear these terms a lot, add value, right? Like, and I think it's like, when you say a word too much and you're like, like,
Authentically add value.
yeah. And you're like, what does that mean? And so I think what you're describing too is, especially, I think it's mostly energetically, right? Because a lot of the stuff we end up reading and we can put energy behind it that feels, if we're coming from an insecure space and we're feeling like we really need our business to succeed, right? Because a lot of times people are coming into marketing early to be like, oh, the nervousness, right? And so, yeah, it can feel like you read it almost with a tone of like competitiveness as opposed to the energy that you just said, which is like, those are all so true. I might add that one to, and here's another one that I thought about, right?
Right.
Like,
Right. Or if somebody tells a story, and you've like, how'd you even think of doing that? Right. That's that's a question that could continue a conversation. Genuine curiosity. Wow, what made you even think about that in the first place? Or, I had this happen. How would you handle that if you were me? Um, Continuing the conversation without hijacking it. And if you are a career coach and you're reading from other career coaches, what you don't want to say is, in my business, Career Coaches Unlimited, we do this, this, and this, and make it an ad about you. Like, you don't want to make it about you. You want to, give props to the original poster and or the author, and then you want to just, again, add to the conversation. And if you're just going to say like great post or, oh my God, this so resonated, just like it instead, because it's like almost like a waste of your posting energy, your commenting energy, because nobody's going to read it, unless you're doing it to help the author by like maybe just like maybe the algorithm will see it a little bit more, but even that's starting to change, so that almost doesn't matter either. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. You're not really working it out. You're not really working out the muscle, right?
You're not working the muscle, and you're not helping the author anymore by just putting, hey, great post. Now, in something where like if somebody did get a new job and you just write like congratulations, that's okay. And the LLM algorithms, they're knowing that the word congratulations, you're congratulating somebody on this new job, like it's reading context now, so it actually understands that. So you're not going to get penalized. And if they just got, a job as the dog trainer for NASA, you're not going to start seeing, astronaut posts, and you're not going to start seeing dog training posts. It, like, the context now knows, okay, they were just saying congratulations to this person on a job. Now, if the next 10 people that you comment on are dog trainers, then it's going to start showing you dog training posts all the time. And you're going to be like, what did I do?
I can't believe how time has like really flown in this conversation. I've been so grateful to have people on for like long conversations, and I think that it's such a gift if anyone watches for the full 50 or hears us, right? Because this goes to like Spotify and everything, because our attention spans are like just so teeny tiny now, right? And so it's just a special thing to be able to deep dive into, like, as the questions just keep surfacing about what this looks like. And I think so many of the things you're saying, it's encouraging me to jump in. It's encouraging me to also support my colleagues or people who I'm helping develop a course, right? That it might be the right space for them to market themselves.
For sure. If you're selling, especially if you're selling to business owners, right? LinkedIn is the place to be, for sure.
Yeah. And I think it's interesting how different fields you're just like, I don't know. Right. But yeah, I think there's so many obvious reasons why I should be in LinkedIn, but this has been so helpful for kind of hearing all the pieces and bringing in the human goals, really, which is ultimately not just having those opportunities, but really forming trust, right? That people are saying like, okay, this person is not strange and I think I could work with them, right?
And real relationships. That's, I find LinkedIn is really about, for many people, I won't say 100%, but for the people who are really actively engaged on there, it's building relationships that, extend just beyond the transaction. It's not transactional. It's networking. It's, you know, so much deeper.
So what are you using AI for?
I use AI to help me write. Like if I have an idea, I like to talk to text, and I will just put a lot of stuff out there, and I will say, okay, organize my thoughts. And sometimes I think it's too much for a post, so let's separate it. Or I will talk and write something, and I would just say, edit it. Do you have any ideas in the structure? Or maybe I can't even think about what I want to write about today, and I'll be like, I want to do something about, visibility. And so, I do visibility a little different. There's so much on LinkedIn right now about AEO, GEO, SEO. Like, I think that's important, right? But to me, it's also about the human behind it. So you need a little bit of that, SEO, AEO, GEO, making sure you're writing the right way for, right, the AI. But it's also about being individual and who you are. So it's like personal branding meets AI meets brand authority, right? So it's like this intersection of all these things that it's just like a spider web. That's all it is, right? So it's a bunch of little things that you just are cautious of. So I may want to write a post today on AI visibility, or I'll start telling it something. And it'll be like, you're venturing into the AEO. That's not really your arena. Pull back a little bit. I'm like, I know, but it's a little bit important if it's there too. So,
Right. Yeah, I
yes.
know. It's so funny to get that feedback. They're like, yeah, but I need to completely take it out. Yeah. The
And then,
having,
so that's how I use it, like for content, and then, I'll use it to analyze my emails sometimes. Um, I connect it and disconnect it to two different like emails, two different Gmails. Sometimes if I'm looking for an old email that I sent myself or that somebody sent me, and I built my, like right now, I just finished this. I think it's incredible. I built a messaging skill. So it takes my knowledge docs, and then if I put messaging work in there, I ask it to give me feedback. So I've worked it with like people's mission, vision, value statements, with content, their about section on LinkedIn, and it's working really well, because one of the things that's really important that people make the mistake of is they write first from their framework and what they do, as opposed to what the problem is and what people are searching for. And it sounds really nice, and like their AI will tell them how wonderful it is, right? And then you look at it as a subject matter expert, and you go, okay, no, this isn't good, right? Because, and you then try and explain why. And that's one of the problems with AI. Like if I didn't know, I would think it sounded great too, right? Like my first like initial like read is like, this is really nice, but it's not saying the right things, right? Like it sounds good, but it's not. So it's important. So I just built the skill for that, and I'm going to be testing it out, and I may wind up putting it in Lovable and having something going on with that.
oh, cool. So the skill is it within Claude or is it
It's in Claude. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's really cool. So it's, yeah. And in the world of shifting from GPTs, right, into skills,
Right.
it's very handy, right? You have so much context in there,
Yes.
but then can put it right in the conversation, which is,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
call it up whenever you're needing some kind of messaging check, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which is so important because again, sometimes that's like the same thing. I'm like, value, messaging, right? Like these words that just like I keep
Right.
hearing,
Yep.
But anyways, this was such a pleasure.
Yes,
I'm sure I could ask you more hours of these questions, but I will So this will post, which is so cool. It shoots itself into YouTube, and it becomes like an audio podcast. And within this post, I will have information about from you and your book and your pretty much your website, right?
And then we can link the next time. So we're going to do a LinkedIn Live next sometime in the next coming 2 months. And when we do that, we'll link to that too. So we will continue this conversation.
Yes, I can't wait. I can't wait. And I'll send to you my reflection about probably the actionable things I will be doing, but also my audience will be doing on their own growth. And I think that the ideas that you're even if someone is like, I'm absolutely not doing LinkedIn, these ideas are so relevant no matter where they are, right? Of thinking about how to engage authentically, right? As a real human with people to make connections, because that's probably going to be the thing that sustains our businesses, not how amazing we are on the internet, right?
Because we're all amazing.
Right. Thank you so much for being with us, and we will chat later.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.